Gentlemen, we have a lot to cover this series.
Yeah, we do. We're going to learn about the importance of really getting in touch with our story. You know, a lot of guys don't know how to look in the rearview mirror and process all the stuff that happened to them in the past. It's important because it could be affecting us right now.
Yeah, that's exactly right. These 6 sessions help us all reflect on our past so that we can understand our present and equip us as men to really engage our future. And the issues we deal with as far as mom and dad and all alone and all these topics we're going to hit, all that makes up our story. And it's just so crucial for a man to understand his own story.
Challenging life sometimes. It's easy for a man to go through life without beginning to look at all these connections, all of these relationships. You know, you have to look back, but at the same time, a man to properly process this material also must have friends with him. He needs other men to help process his own story.
Yeah, a lot of guys are going to get this information maybe on a plane or, just somewhere by themselves, but we can't do this in isolation. You need another man, to kind of help you process this. And one of the great tools we have is a training guide. Every man needs a training guide. One of the things I like about the training guide, not only does it have a lot of extra information and articles, but it's got a section for a strategic move for your session. And so as we're listening, we're thinking, how does this apply to me? What move do I need to make? And then at the end of the series, there will be an action plan. We can synthesize all those moves because, man, we need an action plan.
Yeah, and as we go through these sessions, that's what's been so helpful for me. It's kind of my own personal playbook, and so that's why it's so crucial to get that training guide. You can go to the website, authenticmanhood.com, get it off the app, however you need to get it, and make sure you kind of get down on paper what those wise key moves are that you need to make as a man. Now you've got a plan, a playbook that you can execute and really take steps toward authentic manhood.
Well, gentlemen, let's get started.
What happens when you get everything that you want? There's actually a term that's been coined called success panic, when really everything that you've dreamed about, everything that you've worked for, everything that you ever wanted actually happens. That was me. My family was great, loved my wife, 4 wonderful children, growing family, happy, professionally, things were so good. Everything that I touched turned to gold. Everything that I was a part of was growing and expanding. And then I began to get close to 40 and things started unraveling, not with my family, not with my profession, but with my emotional life. And I realized I can't just keep my head down and keep doing what I'm doing. I can't just keep casting vision about the future. I can't just coast. I have to look back. I have to go back and figure out some of the things that were happening in my family system. I have to look back if I'm going to move ahead. So the theme of my story is just figure it out. From when I was a little kid, I remember my dad teaching me how to swim, which was basically throwing me in the deep end and telling me to just figure it out. From my coaches and teachers who probably meant well, but really just had this theme of you just need to figure it out. Not much teaching, not much training, not much coaching, not much counsel. Darren, you need to figure it out. And so that became kind of my narrative. And then when I succeeded professionally, and I had people working for me, that was my theme for them. Just figure it out. If you're smart, if you're a hard worker, you'll figure it out. And that's what I've done with my kids. Just figure it out. And so now my kids look back and say, well, Dad, you didn't really teach me how to ride the bike. I kind of learned myself. You didn't really teach me how to play sports. I kind of had to learn myself. And so now I'm trying to go back, and I can't just fix my parenting problems, and I can't just fix my managing problems. I have to fix me, and I have to go back and rewrite that narrative and redo that theme. Because life is not just about figuring it out. Life is about humbling yourself and learning. And that's what I'm trying to do. But I had to look back to get there. So I have to be honest, this has been the hardest year of my life. It's been difficult to look back face my failure, deal with people, and in a way that is humbling and hard, difficult conversation, awkward silences, all of that. But the fruit now, a year later, of looking back has been that I'm a better dad. I wasn't a bad dad, but I'm a better dad. A better husband. I wasn't a bad husband, but I'm a better husband. And this is what my staff is saying. Hey, you're invested, you're engaged, you care about us. And all this happened because I faced my past. I began to think about the story that God has been writing in my life. And I'm letting him in. And I'm excited about the future, not just because I'm gifted and I have a great job and I have a great family. I'm excited because I am whole. And I'm becoming more whole. And I'm looking forward to the rest of my life being the best version that God has of me.
Welcome into the second series of 33 as we continue our journey toward authentic manhood. We're launching this series that we call A Man and His Story. Over the next 6 sessions, we're going to help you begin to process the events and the experiences that have shaped your life. You see, every man has a story. And to pursue authentic manhood effectively, you must come to grips and make some sense of your unique story. In this series, we're going to provide you with a biblical perspective to help you understand and give context to your pains, failures, successes, dreams, and hopes. Too often, men do not know how to deal with their hurts, hopes, and emotions. Over the next 6 sessions, we'll help you reflect on your past, understand how those events may have affected you in the present, and equip you to deal with what the future may hold. Today, we're going to begin by looking back. Everybody has a story. Every guy has been shaped by the key moments in his life. The noble moments, missed moments, hurtful moments, defining moments. And if you don't understand those key events of your story, then you could fall into the trap common for so many men. You see, too many guys are driven by events in their past that they don't understand, or events that they're not willing to face. Their refusal to engage the pain from their past, it robs them of the authentic manhood that they were meant to live. Have you ever really taken the time to understand your own personal story? Do you know why you are the way you are? And why you do the things you do? Have you ever explained you to you? It's a key ingredient in the journey to authentic manhood. To be a real man, you've got to look back. You've got to figure out what has shaped you and decide what needs to be held onto, what needs to be let go of, and what needs to be faced and reconciled. Now, we're going to be covering some sacred topics in this series. They may initially even feel to you as off-limit areas. We will address your family of origin and how the dynamics of your family may have affected you. Inevitably, your masculinity, your masculine journey has been affected by the family dynamics that you grew up around. Now, you may have grown up with 2 parents. You may have had 1 parent. You may have had no parents at all growing up. Or maybe there was a parent that was there for a while and then left. You may have been raised by an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent, a step-parent, or even by the state. But be sure, whatever your condition growing up, it's made a huge impact on your masculine journey. Why you are the way you are in a lot of ways, and most likely, what you feel about life. Family of origin dynamics are important issues, which is why our next 3 sessions directly address those issues. Let's look at 3 key ideas that's going to help guide us through this series. First, we're going to take a balanced approach to analyzing our past. People tend to go to one extreme or the other when they think about their past. They either give it too much credit and how it's affected them, blaming everything on their environment or their parents or a tragic event, or they go to the other extreme, which is typical for most men, and they simply ignore their past, refusing to deal with the pain or the experiences there. Guys, our manhood definition won't let us ignore this issue. Do you remember our manhood definition? We discussed it in the Man and His Design series. We said that an authentic man rejects passivity, accepts responsibility, leads courageously, and invests eternally. It's the example that Jesus set when He was on this earth. So we're going to take the initiative to look back at our lives, to make peace where it needs to be, and not allow our past to dominate or define us. The second key idea is the concept of wounds. Life has given many of us physical scars and wounds, but the deepest wound that a man can experience in life, they're not physical, but they're the wounds of his soul. Because many times they don't just heal up, they're inflicted by circumstances. Those circumstances may or may not be of our own choosing. Regardless, these experiences leave wounds that continue to affect the way we live. Now, the natural instinct of a man who has a wounded soul is just simply to pretend it's not there, to bury it, and go on with his life. But the truth is, when we have a wound that we don't deal with, some kind of unfinished business of the past, it does affect us, and we tend to compensate for it. For instance, what if you grew up in a home where there was a lot of turmoil, and you experienced a lot of pain? You know what some guys do with that? They compensate for that pain by learning not to feel. They just simply put a lid over their feelings. That helps get them through those difficult years, but it's very difficult then, in some cases, for that same man to have a warm relationship with people, or an intimate relationship with a wife, or a warm engagement with his kids. When you don't feel or have access to your heart, intimacy is impossible. For most guys, even though they put a lid on that pain, it keeps finding ways to get out. And to compensate, most turn to coping mechanisms and escapes, like stimulants, or drugs, or excessive alcohol. Others may escape into pornography or workaholism to offset the pain that they don't want to deal with. In this series, we're going to deal with it. We're going to address wounds. Now, we define a wound as any unresolved issue where a lack of closure adversely impacts and shapes the direction and dynamics of a man's life now. Every man has wounds, and we're going to help you man up and deal with them head on so that you can be free to live the masculine journey as God intended for you to live. The final key to remember as we launch into this series is that ultimately God is the author of your life. Realizing this incredible truth will change your entire perspective. The course of your life is not and has never been left merely up to chance. No. The all-powerful God of the universe, the one who knit you together in the womb and has plans and purposes for your life, can redeem your past and bless your future so that you can make a difference for His kingdom. The Bible speaks directly to this issue in Romans 8:28. It says, "For those who love God, all things work together for good." The Bible is full of men with stories like mine and stories like yours. Men with painful and broken past whom God redeemed powerfully and used mightily. Regardless of what has happened in your past, God can redeem it and use it to bless others. With those key ideas in place, let's get some help and guidance on looking back. For this session, we're going to interview two experts to help us understand the importance of our past and this whole idea of story. First, we're going to hear from Jeff Schulte. Jeff is a personal friend. He serves as a fellow and executive director of the Sage Hill Institute. That's an initiative for authentic Christian leadership. Jeff speaks nationally and internationally on a variety of men's issues. He's got a seminary degree from Western Seminary. He also graduated from Yale University where he played football. We're also going to hear from Dr. Chip Dodd. Chip is the executive director and co-founder of the Center for Personal Excellence. It's a treatment center that works with high-level executives. Chip is the author of two books, The Voice of the Heart and The Perfect Loss. He's also a popular speaker and has led countless workshops and seminars and retreats all over the country. Jeff and Chip have a unique insight into the realities of manhood, which will help us a ton. They've not only fought well through their own stories and for their own authentic masculinity, but they've watched and led hundreds of other men on similar journeys. So listen closely as Jeff and Chip launch this journey for us and explain why it's vital for a man to understand his past and to know his own story. Well, guys, every man has a story. Let's talk a little bit about, tell me about a man and the journey of looking back and the opportunities or the barriers in a guy's heart when it comes to looking back.
Well, I'll tell you, ever since my sons were little, I have son's 21, one is 19, they're always saying, "Dad, tell me a story, tell me a story, tell me a story about you." I started telling them the truth about my life in terms of what happened to my heart. And that's really the story of a man's life is, where did you put your heart? What happened that you hid your heart? Very tragically. Then my greatest hope as a father is you won't have to hide yours. That you will use yours to do exactly what it's made to do.
Oftentimes we think we're writing the heroic story, when the stories that are most powerful in my life and continue to be the powerful in the lives of my kids are the ones that are stories that show them a human dad with a great God.
Yeah.
You know, I sat down with my son several years back, and you know, every young kid, you know, thinks his dad's still a hero. He was still at the age when I couldn't do wrong, and I was still on John Test. And I was going to share with him some of my stories, some of the way that Chip was just describing. And my greatest fear was, like now my son's going to think his dad's a loser, his dad's a failure. He won't respect me, you know, all those things that you want your boy to think about you. I remember sitting him down and walking him through some of the tragedy of my story and some of my great failure in the midst of that story, and being with him in it and talking to him. And his first response out of his mouth was this, and I think, gosh, at the time Jay was, what, he'd been maybe 12 years old? And he looked at me in the eye, first thing out of his mouth, he said, Daddy, I think you must be more like me than I thought. And it wasn't because he was dealing with the same issues I was dealing with. It was all of a sudden, he saw that his dad was human and in need of God. Like he already knew that he was human and in need of God. In that moment, although I'm ahead of him and above him as a dad in some ways, in that moment I came next to him as just another man in need of a great God that can save a man in great need. And I'll tell you, that was actually a turning point with my son. And that from then on, he began to be free with me more than he ever had been with what's happening inside of him. Not just stuff he's doing, but stuff he's feeling, stuff he's afraid of, stuff he's glad about, when he's feeling lonely or scared or hurt. Because he was starting to see that it was okay for him to be a human being because he had a dad who was a human being. That makes sense.
And our sons are asking us, our daughters are asking us, teach me how to be human.
That's it.
Before a God that can be in this, and said, teach me how to be a hero. God makes heroes, we don't make ourselves.
Teach me how to supersede my humanity somehow by being above it. Which oftentimes that's the way we want to tell the story. And the truth is, that's not my story. In fact, that's what I love about the scriptures, is that's not the story of this book. And this book is about people made for innocence, who experience great tragedy, who try to survive apart from God, and ultimately are promised a redeemed future. And that's the story of the Bible, but it's also my story. And I've learned to find my story in the context of this story, and to say this is a book about human beings in need of God and try to live without Him, and ultimately can find Him, and it's a God who's pursuing them. You know, I think a lot of guys are afraid to look back, or refuse to look back. There's a lot of reasons behind that, but sometimes I think they even use a misapplication of Scripture as a justification to not look back. We'll quote verses like out of Philippians chapter 3, where the Apostle Paul says, I forget what lies behind, I press forward what lies ahead. Or we go to 2 Corinthians chapter 5, where Paul said, behold, all things are new, old things have passed away, new things have come. And there's this assumption that somehow when we come to know Christ, everything that happened prior to that is like this giant dry erase board that got wiped away. And we don't realize that for the Apostle Paul, in the context of both those passages, he's talking about our position in Christ. He's not talking about his story. Listen, the Apostle Paul knew he had a story, and he knew that his story was impacting who he was and what he was at that present moment in his life.
As you watch other men attempt to look back, or as either of you watch other men, what are some barriers? What keeps a man from looking back? What are some complications? Where does that not work well? What do you guys try to do instead of looking back? I mean, what have been some of your experiences you as observed other men?
Well, you said, why don't we want to go back? And it's the story of the Scriptures, because you have one alternative. We can defend ourselves, or we can surrender and give back over to God that which is His, which is us. And most of this book is about people trying to live life apart from God. And you can pick anything, you can pick pornography, you can talk about work, you can talk about food, you can talk about recreation, you can talk about, I heard some guys feelings, you can talk about hunting, anything that keeps me away from seeing my life. The Bible describes those as empty cisterns that don't hold water. The Bible describes that as idolatry. It's trying to live my life and survive my life apart from God. I'm telling you, if I go back in my story,
And each other. Apart from each other.
and if I go back into the story, it's the story that takes me back to my need, and my need takes me back to surrender. My surrender brings me back to God as a human being in need of being saved, redeemed, remade, given the life I was meant to live. So unless I have that story, can feel that story, go back through into some of these wounds we're talking about, I would say what we try to describe as Christianity, walking with God, becoming changed, living this life, becoming a godly man, most of it is denial, most of it is trying to live life apart from life, most of it is thinking if I just learn enough of this, I won't have to feel anything. Because what we have is, we have religion, but we have no relationship. We have no relationship with God, no relationship with each other, and that's why my story is this. I did that for about 20 years, maybe a little bit more than 20, but it's exhausting. It's exhausting. Chasing the carrot around Central Park, but never finding the pearl of what I was made for, which is to me be with me be with you, and me be with God, and to live in relationship with each other that way. And so we miss out, and so we do what the whole Bible's full of, is people trying to live without God. And that's why guys don't want to go back. Listen, it's terrifying to look back at that stuff. It's threatening, it's scary. What's going to happen if I go back there? I know with my dad's stuff, I almost felt like sometimes I was sitting over this manhole cover, and I would peer in and look at it. And I would see some of the stuff about my dad, about my life, about my childhood, and I was afraid that if I stuck my head into that hole, the darkness of that hole was just going to suck me in. The sadness, the hurt, the loneliness, and I wouldn't come out alive. And so I would shove the manhole cover back on there, drive a car on top of it, make sure there was a wheel on top of that manhole cover, put bricks on there, make sure I didn't have to go back there, use the Bible to keep me away from it. Even this, tell the story but not have to feel the story, which was another way of trying to act like I'm connecting with you, but I'm pretending, and I'm faking it, even in the name of intimacy and authenticity. But I still not really told you.
Just because a man can repeat the instances of his life doesn't mean that he's told the story. That's a good thing.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean he's told the story. Unless his heart catches up with what he's saying. And a lot of us, it can't. We haven't been taught how to, we're ignorant about it, we're in denial about it, we're traumatized.
In my experience, it has been, and it's growing in, having gone into the manhole, it's not an abyss. It's not a swamp that doesn't take you anywhere. It's a river. It's a river that dumps you out in a good place. It's a river of surrender, of need, of brokenness, of repentance, of a cry out to God that says, I am a human being in need of you. I can turn to my friends, and this gets back to the man thing, the friend thing, the connected thing with other guys. I can say, I'm in need of you. I'm not an island. I can't live apart from you, Chip. If I can't tell you the truth about my life, I'm alone, and I'm scared, and I'm dying over here. Pretending I'm next to you by trading information about God and trading information about myself, but you never know what's going on inside me. And I'm telling you, that's a lonely, desperate place that many Christian men sit. They sit around in Bible studies, they sit around in small groups, trading information, but not connecting with each other, and not connecting with God, and not connecting with their wives or their kids.
I thought strength meant being unable to feel. I literally believed that the more I couldn't feel, the more proud God would be of me, the more God would be able to do with me, the more friend
Face the wind, walk into it, press through, like I'm tough and walk in it. Yes.
Never number two, that's first loser. Winning and losing. I did not know that God could care less about winning and losing. God cares about truth and lies and living, not winning and losing. So what's amazing is surrender means to give back over that which I took away from what it was made to be.
I would say this, JB, as we talk about the definition of man and unpack that, what that means, and living that out in the seasons of a man's life, that a man didn't have to shout in the dark to walk into living out and becoming that definition, and not becoming part of who he is, unless he's walked through the doors of the father wound and the mother wound and the alone wound, the other men who need friends and mentors, and the heart wound. He can. When my wife says something to me, and it maybe is a 1 pound comment, and I respond with a 50-pound response. Boom, I blow up on something big. Listen, that's about this much to do with my wife, and about this much to do with my mom. And I'm feeling something in that moment. If I don't understand here. If I don't know where all that's coming from in my heart and what I'm feeling in that moment, listen, I will rage at my wife, which really I'm raging at my mom. I'm giving a voice to my wife that I never had a voice to give my mom, which says, you're smothering me, you're controlling me. I know my dad's gone, but you're loving me too much. I'm trying to become a man here. Let me make some mistakes, let me be clumsy, let me be like an idiot for a while. I'm a teenager, but this is part of what the journey looks like, Mom. And I know I scared the death out of you, but listen, you can't put me in a box. And so when my wife puts me in a box, listen, it's my mom put me in a box. And my response to my wife in that moment is not a response to her. If I've not walked into some of this mother wound, I'm blowing up my wife. And really I want to talk to my mom and tell her the truth about what it was like growing up in that home. you cannot, I don't think, apply any of the stuff we talk about in this series unless we're walking through some of these doors about a man's story.
Well, it probably goes without saying that those are two men who understand the heart of a man and understand the importance for a man to understand his story and to go back into his story.
Yeah, you know, the first time I heard that concept, it frightened me a little bit, you know, to look back and deal with some of those hurtful moments. But I realized I had to because it was affecting who I am today.
Most of us as men, we go through so fast through life that we never slow down to look back. We're so busy, we're so engaged in other things, but it's only when I begin to look backward, that's when I begin to understand my purpose, my past, and what God was trying to do in my life.
It's far easier to not even go there, to not even stop, pause, reflect, try to make sense of my life to me. And so, and I want to really encourage the men to do the brave thing, to persevere through this. We're going to step into some white waters. It's not easy going back, but I found I had to step into my past in order to find the freedom that I so wanted for my future.
Yeah, and one of the ways we engage in this, one of the ways we stepped into this is to get with other men. You know, we can't do this alone, we need other men. But also in our training guide, we've got to write down something, you know, some strategic move. What's my takeaway from this?
And I think the strategic move for this one's pretty obvious, that to challenge every man on this journey with us to just take a pen, take some paper, write down what are those noble moments in his life, what are those painful moments, what great moments, what are those missed moments.